Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. Today I'm going to do an oral presentation about photography. And before we start, let me introduce myself first. My name is Nurhanani binti Azahar and my ID matrix number is 11DT22F1016. Are you guys ready to lend me your ears and mind? Let's begin. Before we start, do you guys know about photography? No? It's okay. Let me explain about it. So basically, photography can be defined as an art of capturing light with camera and usually via a digital sensor or film to create an image. It also can be used to calculate wavelengths of light visible to the human eye, including UV, infrared, and radio. For example, photography is used in the world of health, like MRI scanner is a medical imaging technique used in radiology to form anatomical pictures and physiological process of the body. Just a while ago, we already knew about photography, and now I will share to you guys about the history of photography. So as we know, photography is an art produced from a camera, and with existing of camera, there is a history of photography. So I will start with phase one, which is how the camera was invented. So during 500 of before Common Era until 1600 of Common Era, camera obscura was a tool that allowed some artists to easily draw or paint realistic landscape and rendering of architecture. In simplest form, it was a pinhole project as seen in a dark room or box, which the artist can basically trace over. So starting of 60th of century, when early optics began, Leonardo da Vinci, the scientist and inventor, sketched out diagrams and wrote instruction about the camera obscura. In this time, they just not included a pinhole and simple glasses lenses, but those things are used by astronomers to broaden our knowledge of the universe. We go further in 6004, when Johannes Kepler, an astronomer, get credited for coining the term photograph for a drawing with light. He was referring to using telescopic optics to project an image onto a sheet of paper or a canvas to draw the stars. And some astronomers and inventors sought a way to make the paper canvas or a canvas itself sensitive to light. So now we go through with the first photograph, which is during 1827. So it was just one in a series of experiments, but viewed from the window at Lee Crest is the earliest surviving photograph. Nice foreign nibs used a sheet of metal with a film of chemicals sprayed on it. Through light sensitive, it wasn't very sensitive. It took 8 hours to record the image. You can see sunlight illuminating both sides of the building. From here on, the timeline of photography moves rapidly. Different metal plate technologies begin to be used by astronomers, other scientists, and a new breed of artists or scientists, or the naturalists. The naturalists were quite often scientists and inventors themselves, using this new technology to record the beauty of the world around them. So next, we go through with the Eurotype 1839. Around this time, the word photography began to use to describe this new industry. From 1839 on, the popular metal plate process, known as the Eurotype, opened up this mix of art and technology to the masses. Well, the masses that could afford time and money both anyways, though it may have been one of the easier metal plate photographic processes, it was still messy, expensive, very time-consuming, and somewhat dangerous. Next, we go through with and enter the camera during 1841. Photographers of this era generally use camera design and made by themselves or skilled craftsmen adapting lenses made by optical manufacturer to use photographically. Early in the camera timeline of the history of photography were optical companies such as Zeiss, Leitz, and others starting to design lenses specifically for photography. For example, Voigtlander went a step beyond and introduced a camera for metal plates in 1841. Next, photojournalism from 1848 until 1865. In addition to its scientific uses and all the art produced, photography also made its ways into the news. The June days 1848 workers' revolt in France, the Crimean War of 1853 until 1856, and the US Civil War of 1861 until 1865 threw photography images of war into the public view. Writing journalistic description and hand-drawn or painted illustration were replaced by photography images. These images were displayed in public shows and published in newspapers and magazines. In the photography timeline, this helped photography gain a strong place in modern society. So next, celluloid roll film 1835 until 1887. Metal and glass plates were fragile, cumbersome, and hard to work with, and somewhat costly for the average person. A more accessible method continued to be looked for by photographers. A combination of two technologies, silver helix and celluloid-based emulsion, continued getting improved upon. In 1835, Henry Fox Talbot invented a viable method of spreading a gelatin emulsion on paper. When in 1839, astronomer John Herschel came up with a way to fix the image recorded by silver halides. And lastly, in 1887, these two technologies were first manufactured together as a photographic film. This film could be produced in individual sheets or as a group. So next, Kodak 1888. George Eastman of Rochester, New York, had an idea. Use this new roll film, build a simple, easy-to-use camera, and market it as a fun-use product. In the history of photography, Eastman was a master of marketing photography to the masses. He said, "You push the button, we do the rest." Eastman Kodak became a driving force in the worldwide boom of photography. They introduced many different formats of films, both in rolls and sheets, as well as cameras for beginner, enthusiasts, and professional photographers. Next, moving picture 1878 until 1900. So moving pictures or movies are an intrinsic part of the timeline of photography. The question of how best to capture subjects in motion was first successfully answered by Edward Muybridge in response to settling a bet about horses, hooves, and galloping. The things that move technology. In short time, cameras and accompanying projects were invented to film continuous motion and display them by means of projecting onto a large screen. Later, innovations such as sound recording get added in as well in due course. So next, 35mm film and the Leica 1913. One of the more common formats of roll film was 135 format, also called 35mm. This format was used primarily for motion pictures, but it also started getting spooled into small cartridges or miniature still cameras as they would call them. The movie cameras transported 35mm film through the cameras vertically with an image frame of 18x24mm. In 1913, Oscar Barnack, an engineer at Leeds, designed a prototype still camera that transported the film horizontally, producing a 24x36mm image frame. By 1925, the Leica I was introduced and became a commercial success. In time, the 24x36mm format became one of the most produced and used image format in all of photography. It still holds true in digital cameras today. So next, 35mm SLRS 1957 and 1959. While many film and camera formats exist, 35mm became one of the most popular formats in our history of photography. In 1957, the first eye-level viewing single-lens reflex camera with an instant return mirror was introduced by Asahi Optical of Japan called the Pentax. The year 1959 saw the release of the Nikon F, a professional caliber 35mm SLR with an entire system of lenses, motor drives, and other accessories surrounding it. 5mm SLRs become one of the primary types of cameras or photography image, and their form factor and image format are still one of the more dominant forces in modern digital photography. So the history of photography timeline continues progressing through the present day with digital imaging taking front stage for most photographers. Digital is a fantastic medium for photography because of all of the varied formats, storage and display option, and ease of transferring images. The first non-digitally recorded images were created in a Kodak lab in 1975, and it took 23 seconds to capture the 0.01 MP image. The camera was very basic, but recording apparatus weighed in 8 pounds. Among the first digital cameras of the 1980s and 1990s were several point-shoot style camera from computer makers and the video camera manufacturers. From about 1989 through the early 20s, Fuji and Kodak collaborated with Canon and Nikon to make digital cameras that fit into what professionals needed. Nikon then introduced the D1 in 1999. This marked the first time that a major camera manufacturer on its own design and built a camera specifically as a digital system camera. So in the present day, as we know, a phone that it can be put in our pocket and carry a camera that records image and video. So, and right now, the camera it can be transferred those photos and movies virtually, such instantly to almost anywhere in the world. So next, we go through with technique of photography. So we go first with definition of technique in photography. Technique in photography was a large variety of photographic techniques and media are used in the process of capturing images for photography, which including stereoscopic, dual photography, motion blur, fluorescence photography, and light field. So we go through with stereoscopic. So stereoscoping, a technique used to be enable a three-dimensional effect, adding an illusion of depth to a flat image. And it also was the first photograph that captured figures in motion, and it has been realized by using film and more recently in digital electronic methods. So next, dual photography. Dual photography was a technique of taking two photographs of one scene at the same time. It also practices of creating a photographic scene from two opposing or complementary sides of a single real-world situation. Specific technique of dual photography include back-to-back photography and portal plane photography. So next, motion blur. Motion blur is the appearance streaking of moving objects in a photograph or a sequence of frames, such as film or animation. It results when the image being recorded changes during the recording of a single exposure due to rapid movement or long exposure. Next, fluorescence photography. It was one of the oldest optical techniques for the determination of concentration and temperatures. It was a major field of application of this technique is combustion. So the last one is light field. It was a technique that enables capturing of all the information about each light ray in the scene, allowing the viewer to freely focus on whichever plane the viewer wants to see in focus, and in the same way a person views natural everyday objects. Next we go with types of photography. So first we go with portrait photography. So portrait photography, it's capture the personality and mood of an individual or group. The images may be candid or poses, or maybe full body or close-ups. Most popular types of photography portraits include senior portraits, family portraits, engagement photos, and professional headshots. So as you can see on the slide, on the left slide, it was professional headshots. The example of professional headshots. Okay. So next, photojournalism. Photojournalism is a way of telling the story of a newsworthy event or scene through photographs. It should be as objective and truthful as possible and capturing candid moments as it happens. So next, architectural photography. Architectural photography was both the interior and exterior design of building and structures as the subject of architectural photography. This photography brings a genre encompasses diverse structure. So next, fashion photography. We showcase and glamorize fashion clothing, shoes, and accessories to make it more desirable and uh, make it popular to consumers. The picture in the slide was an example of Vogue magazines. So, so commonly when it published in magazine and online, it can be gives different types of photography, and a biggest opportunity came up because of creativity in making it eye-catching and appealing. We have done with types of photography and techniques of photography. So next, we go through with bare minimum needed for photography. So for those who sorry, for those who maybe want to be a photographer or who maybe want to who like to capture an image or stuff, this was for the users of the camera. It's not suitable for those who taking a photo by using a phone. Okay. So we go first with the camera. For camera, you don't need the most expensive one to shoot stunning images. It depends on your comfort and objective of using the camera, whether to different experience levels, industries, technical demands, or photography profile. Most of professional photographer will go for digital sense lens reflex DSLR camera since it is the best general purpose choice compared to micro four thirds camera MFT or M43 have emerged as a respectable alternative. For me, whatever camera you buy, make sure to consider body shape, and size and manufacturer. Because if you choose one of your camera, you will need to stick with it for everything else. I also consider to buy from trusted brands because they create reliable products that integrate well with a variety of lenses and add-ons. So next, lenses. Beginners only need one good lens to jumpstart their careers. Your kit lens is what included with your camera and likely the lens you will be using the most, at least while starting out. The standard lenses typically have large focal lengths and are designed for medium to close range photography and making them a decent all-around option. However, if you have the money to spend, you may want to consider investing in a couple alternatives, a prime portrait lens and a wide-angle zoom lens. No matter what, do your homework before buying lenses for your kit. So next, memory cards. In regards to memory cards, the major differentiation factor is size. Cards with larger capacity hold more image, but smaller cards are cheaper. I recommend starting with multiple smaller cards in the 8 till 16 GB range. Although you get more storage room for your buck on the mid to large size and 32 till 64 GB. So you won't lose all of your photos if a memory card malfunctions. So we are almost done with the presentation. So for conclusion and value, we have reached the end of this presentation, and I would like to make a conclusion about photography. Photography is not only the art of capturing light with a camera, but it became a medium to play back an object that were originally just things. Through photography can create a visual that looks real, visible, moving, and appears to be present somewhere around us. Photography plays a role for create and record an event, scene, or any atmosphere. In the process of capturing and creating photographic words, especially expression photography, major photography planning is required, starting from the location search, good lighting, selection of objects, and equipment use. By major planning, the obstacle in the location will later be overcome. In addition, it also requires a conceptual thinking process and a little imagination to get desired visual image. Certainly, references from various resources are also very helpful in generating ideas. So since I get requested from a random about my collection and about my hobbies, so I will share to you guys about it. So basically, and disclaimer, I'm not using a camera because camera costs me a lot of money, and the only one equipment that I have to taking a photos was a phone. So I'm not an iPhone user. I'm just an Android user. So for those Android user, it's not a possible things for you to take good photos and a great photos. Okay, so as you can see on the slide, um, it was a photo that I took during my vacation when I was in Terengganu. So on that time, I was on the way back to home from Terengganu. So I just randomly take it. Okay, so I will explain about what types of photography that I use and all the stuff. So types of photography that I use was time-lapse photography. So for the techniques, it was a motion blur and live fill, and I use VSCO apps for editing because it was free and it's easily for beginners. It's easy to editing your photos. So I really recommend it for you to use VSCO apps. So for the ad filters, actually ad filters it depends on you for you use it or not. For me, I use it for making more fresh, or I don't want to I want to make it more brighter. So if I want to make it brighter, so I will use ad filters. If not, I will use the basic filters that VSCO gives for free. So on this picture, I use air filters. The first one is exposures. I use negative 1.3. For the contrast, I'm adding 0.7. And for the sharpen, 1.0. For saturation, I added 3.1. For the temperature, I added 0.8. And for tint, I added 0.5. And 7. Fade, I added 1.1. So for the ratio frame for the photos that I used was 16:9. Uh, some people will may ask me why did I use 16:9, not the others ratio? Because as a teen, I used like to share my collection into my Instagram or my social media. Sorry, for in my social media. So when I use 16:9 aspect ratio, it can complete the frame was completely nice to post on my story or my other social media. So that's it. So next, the last collection, I will not expose more because I got a bit insecurities on my photos. Okay, yeah. So next, on the slide you can see it was a photo of uh I'm not a KL I'm not a KL people, so um if I'm not mistaken, that was a photo when I used to be in the pinpoint of KL, and yeah, so it was just a random photo that I took, and I edited it with helper of the SEO apps. So it's same, just like the other photos. I use a phone too because camera cost me a lot of money. So phone is suitable for me to take photos with freely. So we proceed with types of photography. So the types of photography for this picture was architectural photography. So the techniques that I used was worm's eye view, which is from down to up. So as I said, I use VSCO apps for editing, and for these photos, I'm not adding any filters. I'm just using the filters that VSCO given, which is V5, and the aspect ratio was that I used was 16/9. So that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for hearing my presentation. And bye bye.